page 129 at the bottom, right about here. See that whole yellow part? She said, when we are in prosperity, oh, the little that we think of such dreadful sights, and to see our dear friends and relations lie bleeding out their heart blood upon the ground. There was one who was chopped into the head with a hatchet, stripped naked, and yet was crawling up and down. It is a solemn sight to see so many Christians lying in their blood, some here and some there, like a company of sheep torn by wolves, all of them stripped naked by a company of hellhounds, roaring, singing, ranting, and insulting as if they would have torn our very hearts out. And here she says, now this is an afterthought, I guarantee, but here we go. Yet the Lord, by his almighty power, preserved a number of us from death, for there were 24 of us taken alive and carried captive. So she says after they've gone through and devastated the whole town, 24 people lived. Okay. I had often before this said that if the Indians should come, I should choose rather to be killed by them than taken alive. But when it came to the trial, my mind changed. Their glittering weapons so daunted my spirit that I chose rather to go along with those, as I may say, ravenous beasts, than that moment to end my days, that I may the better declare what happened to me during that grievous captivity. So what she's saying is, before then she had said, I will die before I let them take, over my dead body. That's basically what she said. That prior to this time period, that was her mentality about it. But when it was happening, she was self-preserving, and she was like, well, somebody's got to live to tell the story. And that's what it says, that I might better declare what happened to me during the grievous captivity. So because she lived, because she didn't kill herself, fall on the sword, whatever you want to say, and she experienced this and saw the other side of it, she could write it down so we all hear about it, historically speaking. Okay, so the removes are when they get up and move somewhere, and they're traveling from place to place. So in this first remove, there were a couple of other things. That first sentence, I want you to just note the language that she uses, the references that she uses for Native Americans. I mean, obviously, highly inappropriate. But in this time period, I want you to think about perspective, what she went through, what she was going through, her ideology, her philosophy of life, what her belief system, right? So these people were completely and utterly far, far removed from her reality. And so anyway, I want you to think about that. I want you to think about war. I want you to think about various, I want you to relate this, what we're reading, to our own lives today, to what you hear about in the news, to what you feel about war, what you feel about other people on the other side of the planet, etc. Okay, under the first remove, there are two things I wanted to read. The first sentence, she says, now away we must go with those barbarous creatures, with our bodies wounded and bleeding, and our hearts no less than our bodies. Then down about midway, right about here, all was gone, my husband gone, at least separated from me, he being in the bay. And to add to my grief, she says, the Indians told me they would kill him as he came homeward. So not only was she there with her own child, who had been hurt and was dying, by the way. If you read this, her child is dying. Not only that, but the Indians have told her that her husband's going to die when he gets back. Let's go to the second remove, and we're going to start on that second line right here. It is not my tongue or pen that can express the sorrows of my heart and bitterness of my spirit that I had at this departure. But God was with me in a wonderful manner, carrying me along and bearing up my spirit, that it did not quite fail. One of the Indians carried my poor wounded babe upon a horse. It went moaning all along, I shall die, I shall die. I went on foot after it with sorrow that cannot be expressed. Okay, so she's watching literally, and after that, what a terrifying picture and reality of what she went through right here. But that next sentence says, at length I took it off the horse and carried it in my arms till my strength failed, and I fell down with it. Then if you go down a few lines, she gives the Lord credit. She says, but the Lord renewed my strength still and carried me along that I might see more of his power. Yea, so much that I could never have thought of had I not experienced it. Well, so she tells here that her faith kept her going. And I think today, what I would ask you is what keeps you going in difficult times. This is a way to, we may not be able to relate with this, thank God, but some of us may. And the other thing is, but what carries you during really impossible times or unnerving moments, or when, when hell and high water comes your way? What carries you? How do you get through those moments in your life? All right, so we're going to go into the third remove, and then I want to really point out, we've heard it already, but the Puritan emphasis, like that kind of ideology is really clear throughout this, but never so clear as here. And by the way, Jonathan Edwards, yeah. All this stuff tying together right now. All right, so I'm right here in this part right here. I then remembered how careless I had been of God's holy time. She's talking about the Sabbath. She had forgotten that it was the Sabbath day. I then remembered, how many Sabbaths I had lost and misspent, and how evilly I had walked in God's sight, which lay so close into my spirit that it was easy for me to see how righteous it was with God to cut off the thread of my life and cast me out of his presence forever. Y'all, I don't have enough time. I'm on 20 minutes right now. I do not have enough time to talk about the Puritans, Jonathan Edwards' sermon, and the way these people viewed God. But what she's saying is she's enduring some sort of punishment. Yet the Lord still showed mercy to me and upheld me, and as he wounded me with one hand, so he healed me with the other. Their perspective of God is disturbing. And that's all I'm going to say, in my opinion. All right, page 132. On the top page here, do you guys see that where that's highlighted? Here's what she said. And this is the last one I think that I did for you guys. I sat much alone with a poor wounded child in my lap, which moaned night and day, having nothing to revive her body, or cheer the spirits of her. But instead of that, sometimes one Indian would come up and tell me 1 hour that, quote, your master will knock your child in the head, and then a second, and then a third, your master will quickly knock your child in the head. This was the comfort I had from them. Miserable comforters are ye all, as he said. Thus 9 days I sat upon my knees, with my babe in my lap, till my flesh was raw again, my child being even ready to depart this sorrowful world. They bade me carry it out to another wigwam, I suppose because they would not be troubled with such spectacle. Whither I went with a very heavy heart, and down I sat, with the picture of death in my lap. About 2 hours in the night, my sweet babe, like a lamb, departed this life on February 18th, 1675, it being about 6 years and 5 months old. Okay, so I told you that we're talking about perspective and the way people see things. Okay, the reason why I started with that introduction is because this attack happened because of the executions. Everything like action, reaction, right? But this is still a very harrowing tale, and it's worth reading and thinking about. Next week, we're going to look at some pieces, recorded speeches, people that had transcribed speeches by Native Americans. But this week, I really want you to focus on some of the things that we've read just in that portion of the narrative, and get ready for a discussion board that's probably going to be at least 20 points, probably about 20 points, because I want you to read and think about what I just read and the rest of it, whatever else you want to read in there. But there's some questions like which side of the war we're on affects how we see things, and our perspective and perception of God matters on how we see things. And anyway, so many questions here, and please don't misunderstand me, because she went through a god-awful incident. Awful. Her child, that description of her child dying in her arms is heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. I loathe having to read that every semester we do this class. You know what I mean? But I want to know what you have to say about it, how you relate to it, and what you think it adds to our lives today, our understanding today. What can we learn from this? This isn't like an opportunity to get on there and bash Mary, what's her name, Rowlandson, but it is an opportunity to kind of think about, how does this impact my life? How can this enhance my understanding of this time period and my understanding of my world in general? Okay, guys, well, that's a bunch of stuff. Usually my lectures are not 24 minutes, so there you go. There you have it. And I can't wait to read what you have to say on the discussion board. Have a good week.